Welcome back to the Gospel Sports Truth Podcast. I hope you guys have had a most wonderful week. It is almost go time. We have football in just a week. Just a week. We'll have a college game, BK. Can you believe that?
I can't wait. There are two seasons, buddy, football and non-football season, and we're finally at the football part. I am excited.
Yes, sir. Cannot wait. With that being said, I am your Jose, the fantasy football fiend, and I am with my guy BK Wins. How are the people, BK?
Hey, y'all.
So yeah, BK, I saw something, right? And I feel as if every year right around this time I have this same complaint or issue. And I'm starting to feel like maybe it's me, because if you allow this same thing to bother you every year, maybe you just kind of need to get over it, but I can't. And seeing as how we have a show that talks about sports, I get to start the show out by telling you what gets my goat every year around this time. I absolutely cannot stand preseason college rankings. More often than not, someone is ranked way higher than they should be. So when another team gets maybe a win against them early, they get a little bit more credit than they should. Then there's other teams that are ranked way lower than they should be. So when a team that maybe shouldn't have gotten a knock against them because of the struggle that they had against a team that was actually good, but we're just going by namesake, like it serves no purpose. It serves no purpose at all other than giving people something else to talk about, which why don't we just talk about football versus talking about the preseason rankings, which again don't amount to a hill of beans. But what ends up happening is at the end of the season, we'll say, hey, well, although this team and that team have the same record, this team started out already in the top 12. So let's just keep them there. But this other team that we were way wrong about that has actually played a tougher schedule and has actually shown us more when it counted the most, they won't get any brownie points. We'll just hold their past against them. I don't like it. And I thought that when we went to a 12-team playoff, that it would kind of end the need to have it. I mean, we really could wait until about a month in, maybe even a month and a half, and then actually judge what we've seen and place people accordingly versus giving people a path to the playoff before they play the game or destroying a team's path to the playoff before they played. So I don't know if you feel the same way about that as I do, but every year when I see these preseason rankings, it's like, really, here we go again.
Well, you know how much I dislike stating that you're right, but I agree with you. You know, uh, so not while you're drinking, my bad.
Not at all. That's not what I thought you were about to say.
But no, you're right. You know, you and I have talked about this a lot on the show. I can't stand preseason rankings. They're a waste of time. And I like your idea of when I would start. The season I'm in around essentially starts September 1st. Let me see 4 games. Let's have the first rankings come out the first week of October. Everyone's played a third of their schedule. I at least have some data point to go on to see who have you played against, what's your game control, what does the conferences look like so far. I can get a better idea of where we're at. Instead, what we do is we use preseason rankings to generate false hype about teams and narratives based on big conferences like the SEC and the Big Ten, which we know they're the 2 biggest and best football conferences. So these top 25 are loaded with those conferences and then, or those teams in those conferences. And then all of a sudden the narrative is, well, they beat up on each other and it's so easy for them to stay in the top 25. Well, sure, when 10 of your teams are ranked in the top 25, it gives the perception that you're beating up on another. But here's the other thing. This year's ranking should have nothing to do with how last year finished. especially in the environment where we have NIL in the portal and recruiting. The second thing is you can completely turn over your roster. Like what? Colorado 2 years ago turned over 86 people. So
you don't even have to go back Washington.
Yeah. So teams are completely turning over their roster at a quick rate. But the other part of it is they go by recruiting too. Well, how often is recruiting actually right when they do? If you were to go back and look and do a 5-year review of how they were actually evaluated and ranked at the time and then how it turned out, most often it's not that close. Yeah. There's no exact science. So it's basically scouting department and people's perception of what players are, just like it's the perception of what these teams are, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the reality. So you're 100%.
I wouldn't even mind still having a coaches poll. Just let it be literally that, an opinion poll of the coaches that has no bearing on what the actual college rankings will be by the time we get to week 5. It's just allowing people to kind of get their bearings, if you will, of who should be good this year. But I mean, it's, with that being said, the rankings were released. And at first glance, I kind of want to get a feel for who you feel may be over or underrated. Obviously, you have the Texas Longhorns, the Penn State. What's Penn State again? I forgot what they are.
Nittany Lions.
Nittany Lions, yeah. That's a horrible mascot, by the way. What is a Nittany, by the way? I guess I need to look that up. What makes a Nittany lion more special than whatever other kind of lion? Whatever. I don't know. This is what happened when we think out loud. The Ohio State Buckeyes, the Clemson Tigers, the Georgia Bulldogs, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Oregon Ducks, Bama, and LSU are some of those top names. Couple of schools that didn't start out in the top 10, top 12, that may be of note. We'll kind of have a little bit of a conversation about them too. But over, under, just right, like how do you feel about the teams that we're going to be talking about the most to start out the season? I'll put it that way.
So what's interesting to me about this is a couple things. Okay. So Bama 8, LSU, Miami 10. Notables were South Carolina at 14 and Michigan at 15. For me, what's interesting is Texas is breaking in a new quarterback with Arch Manning. The Buckeyes are breaking in a new quarterback. Notre Dame's breaking in a new quarterback. Oregon, Bama, and Miami are all breaking in new quarterbacks. So there's a lot of teams in the top 10 that have question marks at that position. That doesn't mean that they're not a very good team or won't have very good seasons, but those are lofty rankings for teams that have a question mark at the most important position. And so, especially knowing that a lot of these teams in the top 10 hail from the Big Ten and the SEC, where those conferences are typically very competitive, right? So it's going to be difficult. For me, the two teams that I have overrated, number 12, Illinois, like how in the hell are they in the top 25, let alone the top 15? Like what happened there? And then
what you said shouldn't happen. People taking into account what happened last year instead of just focusing on this year, which is why we shouldn't have a preseason poll. But go on.
and this won't break your heart either, but Michigan at 15, right? Like their schedule is pretty tough. They got to play Texas. Of course, they play Ohio State. they're going to have a tough schedule. You always do in the Big Ten, unless you're Indiana last year. So then, not pointing fingers at Indiana. But
Not at all, BK. Not at all.
but Michigan's breaking in a new quarterback too. They lost a lot of starters off of their offense and defense. So I'm curious to see what that team looks like. So those would be my overrated. Again, sorry, Big Ten, you can hate me later on that. But my underrated one should surprise nobody because I literally preached about them for the last 2 months of last season. It's SMU at number 16. You return your head coach. You had a good recruiting offseason. You return your starting quarterback. So your core system's in place. The ACC is not very good. Like Clemson is expected to be really good. Miami is projected to be good, although I'll believe it again when I see it. They lost a lot of key pieces off of their offense last year, like Cam Ward, to name one, Berrios, and they're also their starting running back. So that's a lot of parts to remove, specifically Cam Ward. You lose a terrific college quarterback like that. Sorry, but Carson Beck's not Cam Ward. I've seen enough of Beck to know that he won a lot at Georgia because of how dominant Georgia was, not because he was great. And Georgia was way too willing to let him go for that 5-star prospect. So I'm just saying. But SMU, favorable schedule. Yeah, they have some tough ones, of course. But I think they made it to the ACC title game last year. I like their chances to have another great season. How do you see, even though I know we both hate the rankings, how do you see over and underrated here? And do you agree with my assessment or do you hate it?
No, I mean, we aren't too far off. There are a couple of teams that are a little higher that I'll address first, though. Help me out. Where did Texas get better in comparison to last year?
They didn't.
Okay. Now, if Arch Manning was so great that he couldn't get Quinn Ewers off the field and nothing else elevated, how are they better than, honestly, several other teams in the top 10, as far as my humble opinion is concerned, which again, I need some help understanding. I know we shouldn't look at last year, but historically speaking, there may have been 2-3 seasons in my 44 years of living that Penn State has been better than OSU, and you have them as the number 2 overall school in the country, followed by OSU. Yeah, no, and Clemson. What are we doing? Like, what have they done? They didn't even look great in a horrible division. Where did they get better? I don't know. To not have rankings when the rankings look like this just makes a whole lot more sense than you just throwing stuff up against the wall and hoping that it sticks. Because it's not so the team that beat Texas, right, and has the same issue that Texas has, which is the fact that they lost their quarterback, is ranked 2 spots lower than Texas.
Although in fairness,
none of the other teams,
one team has Ryan Day.
I can't argue that. So that throws a little bit of water on the fire. But I mean, Ryan Day won a championship last year. So if all things remain equal, at least to start this year, he's a championship winning coach of the previous year. Like, This just bothers me. Like, I don't like this list at all. I don't see. For me, I would have OSU, Georgia, Penn State, Texas, Oregon, Clemson. That would be my top 6. That's how I would get Clemson back in there. Notre Dame, Bama, LSU, and number 10, actually, believe it or not, I'm going to tell y'all who my number 10 is, but let me explain before you start griping and groaning in your cars, okay? Number 10 is going to be the South Carolina Gamecocks. And let me explain to you why, because this is not a homer call, okay? They were on the rise to end the year. They have a quarterback who may be playing his best football entering the year. They have weapons everywhere. They had a remarkable, in comparison to years past, recruiting season, if you will. And the blessing and the curse of being at SC is we have a lot of elder statesmen that if they had played in other schools, they would probably not be there this year. So I just feel that based on where they were last year, the showing that they had, and still having the same core group of folks, not basing the rank on what they did last year, but having the same players and not having to rebuild on the fly, which is what some of the other teams that are above them right now are having to do. So that's kind of where that's how my top 10 would run. I definitely have more confidence in South Carolina than I do Miami. I just do. No.
Yeah, so I don't hate any of that. I mean, the good news is we'll find out really quick in week 1 when Texas visits the Horseshoe to take on the Buckeyes. So
Yep.
We'll see that very quickly. And by the way, I can already let you know that will be a best bet. So we will be talking about that game at length as it gets closer. But but this is why the rankings are trash, right? Because one, Texas has done nothing. Their biggest thing, they've lost their starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State lost their starting quarterback. Notre Dame, who is going to be their quarterback? Oregon has a new quarterback. Bama just named their quarterback. LSU's quarterback is already had to deal with a recent minor injury scare. His words, not mine. So, and he hasn't even played a game yet. So now, granted, LSU plays Clemson soon enough. So we'll get to find out real quick where Texas, Ohio State, Clemson, and LSU are, right? Very quickly, we're going to know. At least have some pieces to that puzzle, which is the playoff puzzle. But it makes no sense to have rankings at this point because the truth is nobody knows what these teams are at this point. You can hope teams are certain things. And I guess here's the other thing, right, about rankings. I'm going to go back on something that I've said before.
Okay.
Which is normally, I just said in the show, and I've said this before, I've consistently said that when you do these rankings, that what happened in the past shouldn't factor into this year's rankings. It's this year's rankings, not the last 5 years. But if Ohio State's beaten Penn State 9 of the 10 years and 7 in a row, how do you have, and they're the defending national champion, which normally gives you a bump in any other sport, any other time. Why would Penn State be ahead of it? Even if it's one spot.
Agreed.
Like, that's all I have to say about
it. It's just 1 + 1 is equaling 11 instead of 2. Like it's I don't know. But
I figured out I figured
What's
it out
that?
because it gives me a chance to take 2 shots at once. It's my own little bundle. So here's the deal. I figured it out. It's a BK bundle. Here it is. Ready? The same people who do these rankings are probably the same people who do replay.
I mean,
They can't get their crap together.
you might not be far off. I can tell you that. And the same people that I do replay are some of the ones that are in charge of some of these rule changes.
Actually, you know what we could do? We could go back to
What's
last
that?
week and just throw toys at them till they get the rankings and calls right.
Apparently, throwing toys gets a lot of attention. It gets the issues addressed.
Who knew? People don't pay attention until toys go flying, and then all of a sudden,
I see a promo in the future here. Just saying. We're leaving our options open. That's all I'm saying. NCAA rule changes. They're going to be cracking down on players faking injuries. Number of overtime timeouts remain at 1 in the first half, in the second and extra periods. But after that, only 1 remaining timeout for the rest of the game. I don't see too much of a change. Well, I don't see too much of an effect by the changes. I'll put it that way. It'll just be one of those, hey, we're looking at this now, so please don't make us have to rule on it. The overtimes, I don't think that really matters much at all. Just one more thing for the assistant coaches to kind of keep track of. That doesn't affect football, but so much. I don't know.
Here's
how are you feeling about the changes?
Here's my question though. How are you going to prove that somebody's faking an injury?
I mean,
because here's my concern about this. Because there's a potential for there to be, because you lose a timeout, the player has to miss a snap, and it could have ramifications for this. And like, how awful would it be? And God knows we know officiating screws up all the time. How awful would it be for an official to penalize a team for faking an injury and for it to turn out to actually be a legit injury? Because you know it's going to happen as sure as we sit here.
I don't think it is. BK. You know what? I believe that this is a tactic on part of the NCAA, kind of akin to what the NFL does. They send out a letter to all the teams right about this time of year and say, hey, cut the crap as far as this is concerned, this is concerned, this is concerned, this is concerned. Not that they can actually do anything about it, but they just want you to know that it's on their radar. So hopefully you'll talk about it to your team so that way they don't have to try to figure it out. It'll just happen so infrequently that they don't have to actually figure out how to officiate it. Because to your point, how do you? And here's the other thing too. And this isn't even playing devil's advocate. This is just what I have seen. I feel like there have been plays drawn up for a fake injury in some instances. Like I don't think this is the, I can't tell if this guy actually has a cramp or not type of situation. This is the guys laying down on the field on the kickoff, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck happened to him. Like, this is the guy playing dead when we hike the ball, so hopefully people pay attention to him, and you don't see the other guy doing the end around going the opposite way. Like, there's some plays that I've seen over the last couple of years that it's obvious that this was taught to you to do this. Or if it wasn't taught, you spent a lot of time practicing this because you didn't come up with this spare of the moment. So I think that's what they're trying to get rid of more than anything else. But to your point, if this is really a, hey, you guys couldn't get back to the line and now you all of a sudden had a cramp, looks kind of fishy, flag. Like, I don't think it'll be that sort of deal because now you're stuck in between me having to prove you're hurt and you're or me having to prove you aren't hurt and you having to prove that you are, that doesn't end up working out well for anyone, I don't believe. What we got up next?
Well, couple of baseball teams to talk about.
Okay.
So, last week, of course, we talked about the Yankees and their struggles, but they're not the only New York team really, really battling some adversity lately. The Mets continue their losing ways. Last night, they blew an early 6-0 lead where they lit up Carlos Carrasco for the Braves and were trounced by the Braves 11-6. So Atlanta 11 unanswered. What's wrong with the Mets, and will they fix it come postseason? Or do you think they won't even make the postseason?
The first thing wrong with the Mets is they're the Mets. Like, the Mets are going to do what the Mets do. Like, I don't know why you are befuddled on why they're doing what they do. Like, it's certain teams that it surprises me more when they're successful more than when they find a way to lose. And the Mets kind of fit that category for me. They'll figure out a way to screw it up, and that's exactly what they did. They figured out a way to screw up the game. They'll figure out a way to screw up their season, and that's why they can't have nice things. So, yeah, that's why I'm at with the Mets.
I don't even know
they're not even the Yankees' little brother. They're like the Yankees' redheaded step cousin. Like they aren't even really family. Like, that's how far removed. And the Yankees aren't even doing well. So that's how far removed the Mets are from me feeling as if we should feel going into the season or into a game that they're going to be successful.
I can't even argue with you when you use one of my favorite phrases. So I just got to wave the towel on that one. But here's what I'll say. I think from how I view this too is the Mets got off to such a really good start that they played so bad over the last 6 weeks that I guess the good news for them is they got off to such a good start. They have more of a cushion and margin of error than they would have if they gotten off to a bad start. But, it's a flawed team. Like, their offense isn't what it needs to be. Their starting pitching hasn't been, their pitching hasn't been as great as it really wants it needs to be. Obviously, the Phillies have been terrific, so that, give credit to the Phillies. They're a very, very good team. But, the Mets, Soto's doing his thing. Alonso's doing his thing. Everybody, and Lindor's doing his thing. But I'm not sure that anyone else is doing their thing. And so, that's really why they're the Mets. I won't bore you any more of the Mets, Zay, so I'm trying to keep you awake during the program. So we're going to talk about a different NL team. How about the Brewers? The Brew Crew have rattled off 12 straight wins. So my question to you about them is, I guess I'm going to add a question. I guess, how good do you think the Brewers are? Can they actually dethrone the Dodgers come playoff time? And how surprised are you that they've been this damn good?
Very surprised. I'm going to give you an analogy. And I think that you'll be on the same page with me here. This is how I feel about the Brewers. I'm going to put a team out there that you despise, but just hear me out, okay?
Oh, God.
I feel like the Brewers are what is it? Okay, you remember the Oz? The Wizard of Oz? So the Brewers are the Good Witch of the North to the Astros Eveline. Like, I feel like the hot streak that the Astros got on, and although they cheated to get their hot streak, I feel like the Brewers are on that type of a tear, but without having to do it the way the Astros did it. That's why I say you have the Good Witch of the North and this is Eveline. I'll just say, like I think they're opposite and equals they're the same in the sense of the streak that they're on and the path that it took them to get where they eventually wanted to go. But the ways that they went about going to do it, I don't believe are the same. I do believe that the Brewers can sneak up on the Dodgers. It's normally the teams that the Dodgers haven't paid their way to be able to beat that sneak up on them. It's like, whoa, we paid to strengthen this so that way we would not lose against a team who had that as their strength. But we had no preparation for this team because no one did. That's when the Dodgers tend to kind of stumble a little bit. When David, comes out of the woodwork with the slingshot, and before you know it, Goliath is falling. So that's now set aside. Let's imagine if I had used another team's name other than the Astros. Does the analogy have any weight in your humble opinion?
Assuming that I overlook the cheaters, and I've not seen any trash cans in the Brewer dugout, at least being banged between pitches. Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes a lot of sense for sure. I think what's interesting as far as can the Brewers dethrone the Dodgers, the National League is full of really good teams. Like, the Brewers are good. The Padres are really good. The Dodgers are good. The Phillies are really good. And I mean, the thing about dethroning the Dodgers, which, I'm just going to kind of open this up a little bit here, just beyond the Brewers. The Dodgers don't even have to worry about just the Brewers. They got to worry about winning their division because the Padres coming into our show had a half, they were tied or a half game up. They were basically neck and neck. And so if they're a wild card, that makes it even that much harder for the Dodgers to navigate the National League because there's a very real chance that the Padres could win the NL West, and you don't want to be a wild card in the playoffs. Like, there's been a recent success for sure, and but the Dodgers are banged up. So, like, will they be healthy? And then can they win the division for the 11th time in 12 years? Like, but the Brewers are just on fire, and they have – I say this all the time in sports. There's a difference between hoping and wanting to win and knowing you can. When you win 12 in a row, you know you can.
You're not wrong at all. It's time for the truth and nothing but the truth. What's up first, BK?
So, does preseason success matter for rookie quarterbacks? Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, all off to solid preseason starts. But does it matter?
Sure. Absolutely it matters. It just doesn't count. And that's different. It counts for absolutely nothing. But for the confidence of someone who's never played on that level to know that they can put on their pants the same way that the big boys do, I don't see how that notch in your belt isn't useful for something. And I'll take it a step further. I think simply playing in the preseason, successful or not, is truly important and matters. We're having this trend of teams deciding that I guess like they aren't really going to play their starters pretty much at all. And then we go into the season sluggish and you lay down a few games that you shouldn't. Or you end up being like the Bengals and losing against the Patriots who beat basically nobody else for the rest of the season. But you got beat by him in week 1 because you didn't even attempt to get ready for week 1 outside of your own facility. So especially for a rookie, it matters. You want to go ahead and get hit a couple of times. You want to go ahead and, have to call a couple of audibles. You want to go ahead and have to, you want to make a couple of mistakes. You want to get all of your first out of the way. Go ahead and get that first touchdown. Go ahead, get all of that stuff out of the way so that way you can truly focus on what's next. For some of these guys, what's next is going to be a guaranteed start week 1. For others, what's next is going to be me having to continually refine my game so that I can climb that depth chart ladder. So it definitely matters. If for no other reason, to add to that, look at Mr. Sanders. He's 4th on the depth chart. Cleveland would have liked you to believe that he was in practice stinking up the joint, and he's obviously the best quarterback that they have. If that doesn't mean much to you, that's okay too, but he's still the best that they got. So why is he still number 4 on your depth chart? We can now see with our own eyes that a lot of it is political, or a lot of it is just them attempting to write their own narrative versus letting the cream actually rise to the top. So long and short, yeah, it matters.
So I just want to point out to all of you guys out there that this is the longest he's gone on a show before he was wrong, but he's now wrong. So, but I want to give the flowers for the streak here, as long as it was. So
hey, every now and then.
So here's the thing. I'm going to give you partial credit now that we're in back to school mode. Partial credit, because I go
from not being wrong to only getting partial credit. This is going backwards, BK.
So kind of like the Mets season, but nevertheless.
Oh, hello.
But here's what I'll say. I do think that, well, the preseason matters not at all. It doesn't matter at all in any way, shape, or form for these quarterbacks because, first of all, they're not playing against the top string defenses for a long period of time. Teams aren't specifically game planning for these quarterbacks. But more importantly, because I'm a history person, if you go back in the preseason, the last 7 years, do you know some of the top quarterbacks who've had the best numbers in preseason in the last 7 years? I'll give you some names. Kenny Pickett twice. Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Also, Daniel Jones. Now, none of those players should be, will be, can be, ought to be, ever be starting quarterbacks. I say all this to say that if these are the best preseason numbers we have, and these quarterbacks suck, all due respect, I'd let him get me a Gatorade.
There's no respect at all, BK. You can't put all due respect behind something disrespectful and think it just washes it away. There was no respect at all. What the hell was that?
Listen, I would say this. If I need people to get me Gatorade at a pickleball tournament, I would hire them for that, but not to throw a football for anything that counts.
So let me explain to you why you're wrong, BK. And it's not that you're actually wrong. It's just that your perspective needs a little bit of tweak. The reason why those guys that you named have some of the better preseason numbers are because the teams had no confidence in them and left them in for several games. The other quarterbacks didn't have good numbers because they were in for like a half a series. And it was like, yeah, you're good. Go sit down. They played a whole lot. That's actually an indictment on them. It's not the fact that they had good numbers means nothing based on the fact that it was vanilla defenses, but the fact that your team actually made you play that long. Yeah, but that's even worse than the preseason. The rookie quarterbacks don't really go out there and play all that long if they're slated to be starters. Those guys that you just named, they weren't slated to be starters. They were just slated to make sure no one else got hurt. So we're putting you out there. That's how they got their numbers. So just saying. But continue, I digress.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Well, wrapping up the truth and nothing but the truth, I thought of you when I put this in this week because I knew that you would have a reaction to this. So full disclosure, and I know this has come up over the almost year and a half we've been doing this together. But we record this show on Thursday night, and obviously it airs Friday morning. So the NCAA, as of noon on Friday, so tomorrow for us and later today for y'all, the NCAA is going to finally announce the end and the findings and the punishment in the Michigan sign stealing scandal. So they plan on releasing those things as soon as tomorrow at noon. What is your reaction to this announcement? And what do you expect their findings and punishment to be? Because I think it won't, and I'm going to partially answer this, and you can tell me where I'm wrong. I don't think either one of us are surprised that the NCAA is going to make an announcement. I don't think we're surprised that they're going to give their findings, and I don't think we're going to be surprised they're going to get punished. The question is, what are these punishments going to be?
So let me start out by saying my reaction will be what my reaction normally is to the NCAA. Please go sit down somewhere. I don't even want to hear what you have to say. You take way too long. It doesn't even matter anymore. Like the people you should be punishing aren't even there anymore. Like that's what I don't like about the NCAA. It's like, well, let's wait 2 years and punish the guys that weren't even on the field when this infraction happened. Like what? The coach that was the head coach, he gets nothing happens to him, but it happened on his like. It's just stupid. Like it doesn't take that long to figure out if someone was sign stealing. And guess what? If you actually had regulations and policies that said, hey, if you do this crime, you get this amount of time, you wouldn't have to take months to figure out what the punishment should be because everyone would already know what the punishment is for the crime it is that they committed. But that would be too much like right. And it would also make it to whereas you can't go in and say, we kind of need you guys, so we won't beat you over the head quite as hard as that team over there that we don't really need to be on TV and make us money. So I won't care one way or the other. Even being an Ohio State fan, if Michigan gets hit, first of all, they won't get hit over the head. But even if it was something that was deemed as being overly punitive, I would still just feel like the NCAA got it wrong. Like, I'm over it. I talked the trash about it. They already got the championship. You can't take back people's memories. Like, when you should have done something about it, you let sleeping dogs lie. So, I mean, I don't even really.
Yeah, I don't
want to hear what they have to say, to be honest with you.
I don't disagree with any of that. I guess the thing that I'll be curious about is how severe are the consequences, right? So Michigan, Harbaugh already served a 3-game suspension while he was coaching during this. Sharon Moore has a 2-game suspension. He has to serve some time this year as well to get ahead of it. My question is are they going to vacate any wins or the title, or are they going to, how many scholarships are they going to lose, if any? How severe the punishment's going to be? Is this going to be a proverbial slap on the wrist? Is this like, what are they going to do? Obviously, once they announce that, there's going to be an appeal process, which we know will happen, or reasonably can infer will happen.
None of the things that they can do matter. What is vacating a win? What is the? So you mean to tell me when I saw that Michigan score was higher than the other team at the end of the game, that actually didn't happen? Mm-hmm. What are you talking about? So they didn't actually go to the championship game? That was a law. The other team that they beat won? Like, I'm confused. Vacating is placating. It does nothing for anyone. It just makes the NCAA feel like they did something. It does absolutely nothing to anyone. The other piece of it is too, okay, suspend the coach. Whatever. One monkey don't stop the show. Like handle it while it's going on, so that way the people involved can be the ones to take the punishment. I don't, as an Ohio State fan, I don't want to see this Michigan team get punished for what that Michigan team did. It does nothing for anyone. And BK, let me ask you this, buddy. Who cares about a scholarship when you can get NIL money? Pool scholarships. The money will just come from somewhere else. Who cares? So no matter what, they're impotent at this point. No matter what it is you say you're going to do, it doesn't actually hurt anything. It's not a deterrent to not do it again. If they can cheat and win another championship, you mean to tell me because 2 coaches got suspended for a total of somewhere around about 5 or 6 games, and you magically like a vacated games that now people are just going to forget like it's a Men in Black situation, like that's going to be, well, I'll get a championship now, but I'll just have to deal with the consequence. No one's going to be afraid to not do it again when the consequences don't even matter. Unless you get hit over the head that season and can't go to the championship game because of what you did, no one will care.
Yeah, I think for me, my biggest issue is, why did it take so long? And let me rephrase this. For all of you out there, we already know why it takes so long, because the NCAA absolutely is garbage and useless. Like, they're terrible at making any decisions. Like, they're one of the most inept organizations you can possibly fathom. So, and they've proven it time after time after time, year after year, and decade after decade. Like, it's a pattern. But, or to quote what I've heard in some circles, they're consistently bad. But it shouldn't take this long. You do the investigation, you get all the information, you interview who you need to, you process all of that, and you make a decision. Like, why does
there
it
needs to
take
be an
all this-
appeal? Fine, they should have the right to appeal, but
Of course.
we know what we know. This is what we know. Moving right along. You can either take your punishment, or during the appeals process, you're not eligible for postseason. So take it on the chin now, and know that you won't be able to coach them for weeks 6 through 9. Or you can make a big stink about it, and we won't frame you as guilty, but until we know if you're innocent, you can't play or you can't coach.
Well, the 2 games he'll get suspended for or serve that suspension will be against like Northwest Directional State and the little sissies.
So let me tell you how you fix that. It's not up to you when you serve it. When we find out, you admit that you did it and take whatever punishment there's there, or as we figure it out, because you won't help us figure it out, you sit on the sideline anyway, and those games don't count towards your suspension either. So it behooves you to just tell the truth and fess up. That's what I would like to get to. You're caught, admit it, so we can get this over with and move on with life. Other than that, while you profess your innocence, you're not going to be coaching your team.
Not mad at it.
And I believe that wraps up the truth and nothing but the truth. And now we get to go to our top 5 all time of something. And this one is a little unique. We're kind of coming to the point in the year where we on the East Coast and especially the Southeast have to deal with these crazy storms on what seems like every 2 to 3 weeks. There's something either on its way out or on its way in. So for this week, we have our top 5 all-time memorable storm moments. Number 5 for you, BK.
So we don't have to go too far back for my number 5.
Okay.
Hurricane Helene. We were all affected in the Carolinas by this hurricane last year. A lot of us lost power, some way less than others, some way more than others. But, I've been in South Carolina now for a little over 10 years. And this is the first hurricane. We had the 1,000-year flood or whatever back when I moved down here. But that some of my friends blame me for. They're like, this never happened prior to you being here. And I was like, touche. But nevertheless, this was the first hurricane because most of the impacts were so far inland or in the Midlands that we'll get a little bit of rain or a lot of rain and a little bit of wind, but much ado about nothing. but the devastation that this caused, not only for the people along the coast, but even as far inland as it was, places into North Carolina, Asheville, of course, just ravaged awfully, forever changed because of this hurricane. It's just something that I won't forget.
For me, my number 5 is, and this is actually the only one that I can actually tell you the name of the hurricane. The other ones, I remember the events, but not which hurricane caused them. But the first hurricane that I remember, being a South Carolinian born and raised, Hurricane Hugo. And I want to say that was late 80s, somewhere in that realm. But I remember day or two after the storm, driving up the street, with my parents, and just seeing like all the trees downed and the like signs from the gas stations and all that kind of good stuff, and power outages, all that kind of great stuff. But that was the first one that I actually remember. So that's going to be number 5 on my list. Number 4 for you.
So number 4, for me, it was not Hurricane Brian, but Hurricane Ian, because it was a powerful hurricane that reached Cat 5 status and impacted Florida. There were concerns that it would somehow get near or close or significantly impact South Carolina. But I have a lot of friends in Florida, so anytime something hits near there or there, the radar goes up just for their safety and well-being. Mm-hmm. So that one definitely hit home. And full disclosure for all of you guys out there, little confessional here, I am very much a weather dork. Even growing up in Ohio, I've always very closely followed hurricanes. And we are in the midst, we're finally at the peak part of hurricane season now, which is mid-August through typically the end of September. So we're in that peak. And in fact, our timing is perfect for this subject because in the Atlantic right now, they're monitoring what will ultimately be, or they're projecting to be, a major storm, currently Tropical Storm Erin. So,
And here we go.
I put everyone to sleep with the weather forecast. You're welcome.
Number 4 for me. Floods galore. This was just a few years back that hurricane season, we had like back to back, like I think it was like a tropical storm and then a hurricane, like back to back, and all of the surrounding dams and everything were, and levees and stuff were that kind of like threatening to break, and like lakes and rivers and stuff that have bridges over them that we've driven across 1,000 times. The water looked like it was close enough that if you leaned across the bridge, you can grab it with your hands. Like super scary. Like this is normally a minimum of a 20 to 30 foot difference in space between the bridge and where the water level is. And that year, during that hurricane season, it was literally right there at the bridge. Super scary. And we didn't have a choice but to drive over the bridge because that's how you get from one part of town to the other. There was no other way to go about doing it. So, yeah.
So I am going to pull a Yuze.
Okay.
And I'm going to break the rules. And I'm going to give you 3, 2, and 1 all at once.
Okay.
It's
a beat. So that means you're forcing me to break the rules too, because that means I got to give you 3, 2, and 1.
Yes.
Same time too.
Yes.
So thanks for being a rule breaker. You just made me break the rules.
This is why I can't have nice things. But we're going to bundle these together, and here's how I'm going to do it. So my number 3, 2, and 1 are all monster major hurricanes in 2005. I told you how much I follow this. But all of these storms had a huge impact because they were all catastrophic, devastating hurricanes that I very closely watched, because when you start getting in Cat 5 with huge wind speeds and all this stuff and the size of these storms, it's scary. So Hurricane Rita, Hurricane Wilma, and the one that was most on my mind, which would be the number one, is Hurricane Katrina, that of course everyone remembers hit the end of, I think it was August 29th of 2005 when it hit New Orleans. The devastation, I'll never forget watching that come through in the middle of the night. I think it hit like in the wee hours in the morning, like 2 a.m. or something like that. And I watched it on TV make landfall. And I'm like, it's going to take forever for them to recover from what's about to happen. And you like, it's in that moment that even though it doesn't affect me specifically in South Carolina, as far as where we live, or my family back in Ohio, your heart just sinks when that happens. And it was just
Absolutely.
something that was just, I'll never forget. What would be your 3, 2, and 1?
Well, Katrina was my number one for sure. And my number 2 was kind of personal to me because the storm was coming. We still had to go to work, but it meant that my wife, and at that point, young son, had to go to my wife's grandmother's home instead of being at home because we didn't know what was going to happen. You know, it doesn't take much at all for power to go out or for, you know, us to possibly have flooding situations in certain areas and everything. And that was during the time that they were saying that I think it's Windsor Lake, if I'm not mistaken, had the levee that was like right there on the verge. And if it went, it was going to take a whole lot of the neighborhood that we're close to out. So that was high on my list for sure. The roads being washed out, like we've seen a lot of hurricanes, but the last couple where roads are just literally giving way, I haven't seen a whole lot of that. Floods, rain, power outages, trees coming down, all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. But roads that were there yesterday and for the last 10, 15, 20 years of your life going tomorrow, that shook me up quite a bit. But like you said, nothing. I still don't think we know the half of Katrina. Like, and the thing that was so humbling about it was the fact that they aren't normally in the path, if you will, of that bullseye as we normally are. So to see what happened in an area, that Gulf Coast area that isn't normally up for, you know, to get hit next, and to understand that it could have easily been South Carolina and not New Orleans, Mississippi, or Houston, that was the part that really humbled me. And I had to, you know, send up my thanks and say my prayers because it could have easily been us. So yeah, that was my number one. And now that everyone is crying and but no, it's time that we actually get into the part of the show that we can make a few dollars off of. BK, what are your best bets, my guy?
So I told you guys last week that we would likely take off most of August, but I happened in doing my research this week, found something that I think, no, I know qualifies as a best bet. And you're going to have to wait a little while, unfortunately, to collect on this one, I would assume. But the best bet for this week is going back to college football. The Florida Gators under 7.5 regular season wins. Now, No, this isn't me being a Knowles fan and a Gators hater. All right, let's pump the brakes on that. You should all know me well enough to know that this is all about making you all money. And listen to Florida's schedule. By the way, these are the non-3 cupcake games they get, right? They got to play at LSU, at Miami, Texas at home, at A&M, Georgia, in the largest outdoor cocktail party, at Ole Miss, home to Tennessee, home to Florida State. So remember, they got to go 8-4 or better against this schedule for you to win. At least 8-4. They have 8 of their 12 games are 50-50 or worse in terms of their win probability. So I don't see any pathway with that schedule. And not to mention the fact that Billy Napier is still their head coach.
That part.
I don't know how they're going to go 8-4 with that schedule. Good luck with that. Sign up right now. You can book it. Take it to the BK Best Bet Bank. Gators under 7.5. Even if they go 7-5, it's still a loss. So, but I think this schedule more is indicative of a 6-6 type campaign. They might go 5-7. They could even go 7-5, but they're definitely not going 8-4 or better. So Gators under 7.5.
And that, my friends, just about wraps it up for this week. And next week, we will be 1 week closer to what we all can't wait for, which is months upon months upon months of football. With that being said, good people, always remember, tell the truth
and nothing but the truth.
We out.
Later, y'all.